Hello and welcome back to the Bookshelf Odyssey, and this weekend I'm getting wasted. Now fear not, my virtue shall remain intact, everyone. I am participating in Criminali's Wasted Weekend reading challenge. It's kind of GarbAugust 2.5, I think is what they're calling it. And this weekend we are supposed to just read some things like pulpy, trashy books. Now, and if you know me, I'm a bit of a prude, and I don't necessarily enjoy a lot of gratuitous things in my stories, although I'm not so opposed to violence. I have been known to engage in fisticuffs a time or two, and this year I wasn't sure if I wanted to participate in the Wasted Weekend or not. I didn't last year. GarbAugust was the first time I experienced the glory and splendor that is that reading month. Then I was watching the channel Roy Reads Anything, and he mentioned a collection of books about a character called Sexton Blake. And I thought, if that doesn't sound like a pulpy novel, what would, you know? And so the collection is called Sexton Blake, The Complete Miss Death Stories by Gwyn Evans. I didn't know much about this book, and like I said, I heard it on Roy's channel. I thought I'd check it out, read what the stories were about, and it sounded really interesting. So I did a little bit of research here, and those in England or might know this history more, maybe you can help me out with this. But from what Wikipedia says, that Sexton Blake was a detective featured in many British comic strips and novels and stories like that in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, all really, it looks like from 1893, in fact, to 1978. He ended up being in more than 4,000 stories by some 200 different authors. In this particular collection, he faces off against a nemesis called Miss Death, who is a young woman who, and this isn't spoilers, this is told in the very first chapter, in fact, she is told by her doctor that she's going to die in like 6 months. And so she turns, of course, to the life of crime and comes across a way to blackmail people to help her in her feats of crime. She dresses up in like a skull mask. So I've been reading the first story. It's called The Book of Death, to which she refers to where she keeps track of all the people that she has blackmail information on. And then, so I'm hoping to read that today. It's a shorter, these are like more like novella lengths, like about 100 pages or less. There's 4 in this collection. I'm hoping to get through at least 3 of them this weekend. There's also 3 others called The Case of the Hairless Man, The Case of the Bradford Dragon, and then The Phantom of the Footplate. In the introduction to the book, we learn a little bit about the author, and it sounds like he was not the nicest guy. He was always trying to get money from his friends to pay for different things. This one section I want to read to you because I just think you get a sense of the author's character. It says, "He was a fast worker, but a messy and capricious one. He often wrote on scraps of paper, treated strict deadlines as optional, and frequently delivered manuscripts that were over length, he being too lazy to count the words. This latter tendency meant that his editor, H.W. Twyman, had to chop out paragraphs, which is why so many of the stories end very abruptly. It's an oft-told tale how, one Friday, Twy took delivery from Gwyn of a Blake story, paid him, and, after the author had departed, discovered that the bulk of the manuscript was an old story sandwiched between just a few pages of new material. On the Monday, Gwyn was aghast at the mistake and duly rectified it, having had the weekend to actually write the promised yarn and, of course, to spend the money." And I just like that kind of I don't know, it's kind of a gutsy move, but he got away with it, I guess. And then according to his bio here at the beginning, in 1929, he was a heavy drinker, and he was diagnosed with an inoperable gastric tumor, and that his days were then numbered. So he thinks that maybe it's this death sentence that was hanging over his head that inspired him to write the 4 Miss Death tales that are collected here in this story. But fate being what she is, he ended up living for like another 10 years after that. And then he died in April of 1938. And so in the Book of Death, it opens up with Miss Death herself. Her name is Diana. She's at the doctor's office, and she's given this diagnosis that she only has about 4 to 6 months left to live. And then we get into chapter 1, and we are introduced to a character named Charlie the Chat. And as he's in the middle of performing some minor burglary, he comes across a woman figure wearing a skeleton head. And so I want to read you this part because you really get the sense of the story and all of its pulpy goodness. It says that as he's burglarizing this house, he hears a noise and he looks up, and it says, his flesh crawled with the horror of it. He stood rooted to the spot, every vestige of color drained from his rubicund face. For once in his life, Charlie the Chat was too paralyzed with terror to speak. Standing in the center of the room was a woman, garbed in a crimson cloak of some silken material that emphasized, rather than hid, the rounded curves of her superb figure. The little crook's gaze, however, was held by the wicked glint of an automatic pointed straight at his heart. Then his eyes traveled slowly upward to see the woman's face. He gave a strangled scream, and cold sweat dabbled his forehead. The woman had no face, but glaring at him derisively, mouth wide in a ghastly grin, were the fleshless white bones of a human skull. Then the skull spoke. And then it goes on from there. And at the end of the little paragraph, it says, he was the first living person to meet the mysterious Miss Death. Dun, dun, dun. Great picture there as well. Anyway, it turns out she's wearing a mask, but and then the story just takes off from there. It is so fun to read. I've really been enjoying it. Now, I do want to caution several things. Both the introduction itself, and I believe the Wikipedia article also pointed out how there are some racial tropes in the story that readers might find to be insensitive or out of date. But it's more a reflection of what the culture, how the culture was understood things versus actively trying to be harmful. At least that's what I've not, that's been my reading experience so far. But granted, I haven't made it very far into the story yet. So do be aware of that. Sometimes I can get uncomfortable reading those, the older points of view. Really, for me, a lot of it depends on how it's portrayed in the story, whether it's a character's point of view versus whether it's the author's point of view, and he's or she is trying to be harmful and hurtful with their words. So kind of take it on a case-by-case basis. But so far, nothing real objectionable in the story. Anyway, I'm going to just have some fun here with this Wasted Weekend. Thought I'd just give you a quick update on that. Maybe I'll be bringing a little bit of class to this weekend. So for everyone else who might be hitting the literary hard stuff, make sure you're getting some exercise, drinking plenty of water, keep yourself hydrated. And I look forward to hearing what you're going to be tackling this weekend. I really ended up loving this readathon because, I think I mentioned in last year in my GarbAugust videos, I wasn't really interested in reading trashy literature, but to hear Ollie talking about the, what he qualifies as trashy and the joy it is to read some things, not for any literary merit, but just to have a fun adventure story or, I can read the classics like Penny Dreadfuls, which I really enjoyed doing that last year. And, books like this that are just fun to read and not considered great feats of literary merits, but it's got a woman in a skull mask. What more could you ask for? So that's how I'll be spending my Valentine's weekend reading about Miss Death. Let me know below if you are participating in GarbAugust or in the Wasted Weekend. That'll be it for me today. Just a shorter one today. Make sure you like and subscribe here. I'm on my way to 700 subscribers. We're going to get there soon, and I can't wait for that. It sounds like that's just an epic amount. It's kind of mind-boggling, actually. So please make sure you do that. It really helps us out. And helps get the word out about our channel. So I appreciate that. And so I'll see you all next week, and I might have a book hangover from this weekend. I don't know. We'll see. Until next time, take care and happy reading.